Hi, everybody. My name is Faiz Shakir. I'm the National Political Director at the ACLU. I want to thank Mika for inviting me to join with this esteemed audience and discuss with you some of our organizing at the ACLU. I started on January 20th, the same day that Donald Trump was inaugurated into office. And I'll say that, there are some difficult days in this work. And on some of those days, I sit in my office and I kind of take a deep breath and I look out the window and the White House is around the corner, and I say, things are tough today. How's President Trump doing? And then I reflect, and it makes me happy again. Not doing too bad. Things could be worse. So I started on January 20th, and one of the first things I said to Anthony Romero, our executive director, as I started on the job, is that people are coming to us by the droves. And they're telling us that, essentially, tag, you're it. You're one of the leaders of the resistance. And I felt that the volumes of email addresses and contributions that we were getting were telling us two things. One was, keep doing that amazing work you're doing, ACLU. Keep filing all that litigation, that awesome, principled work that you're doing in the courtrooms. But on the other hand, I think it was people were saying to us, how can I get involved in your work? What can I do to help? And on that question, it felt like we didn't have an answer. We didn't have a coherent national answer to how people could get involved with our work, and I felt that that was one of the most important things I needed to help address in the early going. And as we were trying to reconceive of our work to give people an opportunity to participate in it, guess what happened? Airport protests all over the nation, literally 1 week into the job, January 27th. Obviously, we're out in Brooklyn filing this case, went on Saturday night, and amazing outpouring of support all across the nation. And certainly internally, everyone's like, oh yeah, we definitely want to do this. We want to get involved in mass organizing. It's helping our cases. And David Cole, our national legal director, told me the next morning, seeing all those people out in protest helped our case in the courtroom, because judges are humans too. They see that the public is demanding a verdict and a certain verdict. And as I started going about organizing, just recently I've done a little bit of homework in researching ACLU history as I've been looking into ACLU's role in impeachment during the Nixon era. And I was running across, actually I got this quote here, I was running across a book about the ACLU, and I saw a quote about our founder, Roger Baldwin, that stuck out to me. And in this book it says, at the time of the founding in 1920, Roger Baldwin, the characterization of him is that Baldwin had a different approach toward the civil liberties enterprise than did the attorneys, who were eager to establish the field of civil liberties law. He believed in direct action to politicize issues. He did not trust the courts. And I was like, wow, the founder of the ACLU is where we're at. And so we launched, as I was thinking about, as I was talking to people internally, and I was trying to sell them on this notion of why we want to get involved in mass mobilization. I think we came to the same determination that so many of our activist friends have, is that where's our power? I mean, we're looking at state legislatures, we're looking at Congress, we're looking at the administration, we're looking at the presidency, and we're saying that's not where our power is at. It's sometimes in the court of law, but it's with the people. And thus arose peoplepower.org. We built it with a fantastic team, including Becky Bond, Zach Mallitz, Melanie Garunai, Ronnie Newman, so many folks, Tim Tagaris, Kenneth Pennington, so many people who are involved in making that launch a success. Over 1 million people watched our first live stream, and we had 2,300 house parties across America in all 50 states. And I thought it was really important that as the ACLU is engaging in this, we had to be governed by a motivation that is consistent with the ACLU's goals of the work that we do, and that is to be issue-focused, issue advocacy, and to drive people to work that is supportive of the general cause that we're after, meaningful work. And so the first campaign that we launched was Freedom Cities, essentially supporting the efforts of so many sanctuary city movements across America to think about building blocks for engaging people in the work of making our local law enforcement think about welcoming all immigrants to our country and to resist participating in Trump's mass deportation agenda. And I think the theory of it was clearly based around where's our power? If the president is going to go in a terribly radical direction, then let's turn to our cities and our towns and make them the bastions of idealism and live our values there and push for our policies there from the bottom up, consistent with the work that we're doing at the ACLU on protecting all immigrants. It was a big gamble, I'd say, this kind of work. It's hard. I mean, we're asking people to go and do a lot of homework, figure out who their local law enforcement authorities are, what their local ordinances are, learn about immigration issue, which is not an issue that tends to generate a ton of activism in my experience. It's a harder issue sometimes to get people focused on. We've got a lot of, let's be honest about, a lot of newly engaged white people who are getting involved in this work, but that's a good thing. That's how we win on these issues, people who aren't in the affected community caring about the affected community. So we're getting involved in it, and it's a gamble because it's work. It's rolling up your sleeves and asking people and trusting them to do meaningful things. And I'd say in the early going, I'm proud of the success. I was just writing down some of the ones that we can tick off. Ann Arbor passed sanctuary city resolutions. Washtenaw County in Michigan, Lewisboro, New York, Albany, California, Seaside, California, Culver City, California, Silver City, New Mexico, Middlesex County, New Jersey, Kennebec County in Maine. Those are just some of the ones that have already in 100 days moved in the direction of welcoming all immigrants. And just a couple of the stories on that. Melissa, who is their lead activist in Ann Arbor, I mean, she just a tremendous human being who helped push not only worked with a bunch of groups, helped build a coalition, not only passed a measure in Ann Arbor to succeed, then took it to the county level, it said to the county level, hey, just passing a resolution isn't good enough. You need to provide funding to provide for the legal defense of undocumented immigrants who are facing deportation. And they did it. They got that. It was amazing. Taking what was an original idea of just protecting immigrants from deportation, saying, no, now you got to fund their defense. And she made that happen, and it's incredible. By the way, to Mika's point, women are leading this movement. Melissa was one of them. Lisa Burke in Minnesota, she contacted me and said, hey, I'm organizing folks to go to naturalization ceremonies to shake hands with newly minted citizens. She starts this movement, builds her list, finds out when naturalization ceremonies are happening, and voila, hundreds of people are showing up at naturalization ceremonies, shaking hands with the judges, with the newly minted citizens. It's tremendous. By the way, on the women piece, this coming Sunday, if you're in Lawrence, Kansas, there's a group performing on behalf of People Power called the Ovaries Ease, a musical group, which I just saw this morning. I was like, the Ovaries are performing. This work doesn't come easy to the ACLU. There's challenges, and I think Mika asked me to kind of talk about some of those challenges and be a little candid with you about the difficulties that we experience. I mean, one is that we're changing the nature of our relationship with groups that previously may have understood the ACLU to do a certain thing, and now there's an incumbent responsibility if you're organizing to both respect and appreciate previous work that was done, and to know and be familiar with them, and to not feel like the big elephant in the room is coming in to stomp on local efforts. And it obviously, as the ACLU, it creates an incumbent responsibility on my end to just urge activists to be aware of that and to reach out in that way. And I think it's been an ongoing challenge as you're engaging new activists to understand that. And we're kind of in that curve as our teams are getting more familiar with understanding previous ACLU landscape of how we've engaged with groups and organizing before. But organizing isn't a zero-sum endeavor, right? Whoever joins the ACLU also joins Planned Parenthood, also joins Indivisible, also joins Move On, also joins Grab Your Wallet. This isn't a zero-sum thing. And at the end of the day, there's room for good ideas from all of us. The second issue that I've been facing is that we've got a 50-state strategy for real. We're trying to execute it. We've got 50 state affiliates at the ACLU, all of whom have relationships with elected officials. And on the one hand, you have to train local affiliates to have the policies, the toolkits, the trainings in place to engage new volunteers who are eager to have a relationship with the ACLU, and not all of them are fully prepared to engage that right away. And as part of that effort, we're going to be investing in a heavy amount of field operation over the next few months. Field team both from the national, but also taking a lot of the incoming resources to put them back into state affiliates to build organizing capacity, also hire a bunch of lawyers, also do grassroots organizing. So that's what we're doing with a lot of the incoming funding. The last thing that I'd say about the challenge at the ACLU is the culture of grassrootsism. You know, there's this issue of risk tolerance, and those of us who've engaged in this frequently know that if you're going to empower people, if you're going to do the Francis Fox Piven school of like, let's let people get agitated and go disrupt democracy and like unleash the power, if you will, that you have to have some degree of risk tolerance when people do things you don't like. And I would say, obviously, when you're starting this kind of thing at the ACLU, that risk tolerance is going to be pretty low. You know, the first time they do something to talk with the local sheriff that wasn't on message, or start pushing ideas that aren't consistently on theme, there's not going to be a lot of risk tolerance. And so building that in by showing when it is really valuable. And so we're trying to iterate often as much as possible to show that at the end of the day, the number of successes will outweigh the challenges. I'd say, you know, I'm running out of time here, but I just want to close by saying we're at the ACLU, we're trying to reconceive of our mission a bit too. I mean, we've always defended individual rights, and now we're at a situation where we are defending the core pillars of democracy itself: freedom of speech under attack, freedom of the press, the rule of law, voting rights and access. Those are the issues that are governing how I'm thinking about future actions. In addition to that, you know, we're dealing with this problem of a crisis of our shared humanity. And, you know, there's this Quranic recitation. I'm not religious by any means, but there's one that stands out in my mind that I've been thinking about, and that's, I'll do it very quickly, which is, "O mankind, we created you into nations and tribes so that you may better know one another." And I've reflected on that in this current day, because it not only that we should embrace our differences, but it's that we celebrate our differences, because how boring and crappy would life be if there were just 100,000 Fazes in the world, and that's all I was talking to. That the texture, the richness of life is in our differences. They are the stories that animate us, and I think those are some of the principles as I'm thinking about organizing going forward. I thank you for standing with the ACLU. The ACLU will continue standing up for you. Always feel free to reach out to me by email, fshakir@aclu.org. I appreciate all your support. Thank you.